Welcome to Healthcare Heroes, a podcast powered by NPHub.com.
We created this podcast to highlight the incredible, hard-working heroes inside healthcare.
The entrepreneurs, advocates,
and providers that are saving lives and improving their communities one day at a time.
These are their stories.
All right, so we're live again. And now we're going to test this out for a second time, guys. So, welcome, Namar, to the Healthcare Heroes podcast. I'm really excited to have you on today. Anytime we get to chat for 45 minutes to an hour about marketing is a good 45 minutes well spent. So, I think this is going to be a great episode. Namar, just so we can do a sound check, can you give a quick intro on who you are and what's going on?
Sure. Yeah, so hello everyone. Good to see you again, buddy. My name's Namar Al-Ganas, and I've got a background in healthcare management, and I'm really passionate about helping clinics, especially as they relate to nurse practitioners, improve their financial performance and be able to stay in business. Because one thing I've learned in my experience as both a management consultant and in other jobs I've had in the industry is that, providers are really good at what they do on a regular basis. Like, they're the expert at making the patient better, but they're not always the expert at the business side of running a practice.
Yeah.
And there's a gap, right? So
100%. So let me ask you, man. Now, I know this. I think for the audience, they'd like to know, how did you start working with nurse practitioners? Like, of all the healthcare providers, how did that come about?
Well, so in the first probably 10 years or so of my career, I worked as a management consultant, going around and helping clinics and hospitals optimize their operations, both financially and through rev cycle. And then I started to do some project work in marketing because I understood that, a lot of our clients that I was seeing were not really good at presenting themselves to the marketplace in a way that attracted patients and helped their businesses grow like other small businesses do. And then you and I, Krish, met probably 4 or 5 years ago now.
At the WeWork on 17th Street in Atlanta, Georgia.
In Atlanta, Georgia, man. And you were obviously really involved in nurse practitioners with what you do at NPHub. And given my background and experience with marketing, we both recognize that, there's this huge need in the market for trusted advice for nurse practitioners to grow their business. And then that's, of course, how the book was born. You and I put our heads together and wrote a 95-page book outlining a lot of tactical marketing pearls that can be used right away.
Do you ever wish we sprung for the extra 5 pages to get to the 100-page mark?
I maybe, but you know what? Having it under 100 pages is it's a good tagline to say hey, this is digestible. And there's you and I, spent many, many hours on that thing and can attest that there's no fluff.
Would you write it again?
Great question, man. Yeah.
You would? Okay. I don't know.
I would. Would you?
No, I wouldn't. I would have. I think you and I think if I knew what it took to really write a book. So writing a book isn't just it's not just like you write it once.
Yeah.
It literally is writing and then rewriting, which is fine still, but then it's really the editing, and then the cover design and everything we had to do with the damn editors. It was. That took away from the fun part of writing the book and then talking about the book,
I agree. Yeah. I agree. Writing the content is probably the easiest part, and then it's everything around it that was the headaches, how the content's organized, the editing, the back and forth, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, like, long story short, like, now there's this really good reference out there in the marketplace that any nurse practitioner can go and buy for $14 or $5 on Kindle.
I recommend getting the Kindle version, everyone, just because, like, I love highlighting. I love the fact you could highlight and then just, like, look at all your highlights afterwards.
Yeah,
It's
that's huge.
So nice.
It's huge. But yeah, so I mean, that's my background, like, as a healthcare management professional. I haven't really done much else. I was a wedding DJ in college for a little bit, but my experience in healthcare has really lent itself to helping businesses grow, and so I'm really excited for the next 10 years, and both, you know, my job that I have right now, leading business development for Tribunus, which helps practices get contracts with insurance companies, which is also important for nurse practitioners. But then the marketing side is the organic or the inorganic growth of spending advertising dollars to get patients to come to you. So it's both sides of the coin, right? Because in healthcare, you have the insurance industry, and you also have, you know, cash basis. And so you need to figure out which game you want to play. If you want to play both, then you got to have a strategy for both.
Maybe that's a good. Maybe, you know what? That's actually really smart. That's a good place to start. And why? What, at a high level, why do you need a strategy for both? If you are accepting insurance or you're doing cash basis, and then what is that? Yeah, let's just start there, and then we'll go from here.
Yeah, so you need a strategy. So you need to determine what kind of practice you want to operate. Do you want to accept insurance, or do you want to just provide it cash basis and, you know, not be able to use patient benefits? You know, the plus side of accepting insurance is when patients are looking for a provider, they go to their insurance company and they can see that they're a network. So they will automatically go to your practice through their insurance lookup, or be referred to you through their insurance network. But if you don't want to play the insurance game because the rates are bad and, you know, you're not making a lot of money on it, then you really need to get serious about either becoming, depending on your specialty, but let's just say, for example, direct primary care. You provide a subscription service that gives patients access to you, and you provide a set menu of primary care services, and anything outside of that would be an additional cost. But you basically give them a nice little package for a monthly fee that they can purchase from you and get really good, high quality care that keeps them healthy. And if something comes up where they need that specialist, they could have like a high deductible plan, right? So they're paying really low premium to have that high deductible to protect them if they go to the hospital, right? So you really have to decide what type of practice you want to operate, and then align your strategy, either insurance, cash basis, or some kind of a mix of the two. Because as you know, not everything is reimbursable by the insurance company. So, you know, and I've seen that a lot with like med spas,
right?
Or cosmetic type services. So if you're primary care, but it's really profitable to do Botox and do other things like that, you may have to offer those services cash basis, and then offer, you know, your wellness visits, your, you know, other type like physicals and things like that on your insurance fee schedule.
So, in your experience, the subscription model, right, which is like a very common direct primary care model, you know, where they're paying maybe, I don't know, anywhere from like $200, $300, $400, sometimes even like $99 a month for some sort of access to consistent care. I feel like providers know about it, but they haven't seen a lot of successful stories about it yet. And there's not a lot of like well-publicized practices doing it. You know, I think like when you think about the typical private practice, it's still, a very
It's still
typical
new.
insurance
Yeah.
model.
Yeah, exactly.
So how does like the say either like the practices you've worked with who have done direct primary care models, how are they doing with it? Like 2 years in, 3 years in, what happens?
I mean, so from a nurse practitioner standpoint, I've only seen a few of them, and we've had one as a client, and some are really successful and some are really struggling. The ones that I've seen be really successful have found a way to connect with employers in their city, right?
What do you
And
mean? What are they doing?
So what they're doing is they'll go on LinkedIn and they will reach, let's just say you live in a medium-sized town, okay?
Okay.
You go on LinkedIn, you look up the owners of businesses in your small town, and you reach out to them and say, hey, are you offering your employees health insurance? And then some of them may say, yeah, we're good. Some of them may say, no, we can't afford it, right?
Oh, okay.
For the ones that say they can't afford it, you say, well, would you like to offer basic primary care services at a fraction of what you would pay for premiums so that your employees can stay healthy and productive at work?
Yeah, so
And-
a typical premium these days, it looks like it's what, like, I think employers are paying something like, if they're paying like 70-80% of it,
It's crazy.
maybe, they're paying what, maybe $400-500, $500 a month, let's say. Employees
Per
are paying what,
employee.
per employee. Employees then are paying what, another $200 a month usually.
Yeah.
So that's 700, and then like, okay, so then you go to the employer who doesn't offer this and say, hey, instead of doing 500 and your employee paying 200, you can do something like 150 or $200 or something like that.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
40%. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And if you think about it from the nurse practitioner standpoint, if that employer has, I don't know, 20 employees, right? And your fee is $200 a month, right? That's $4,000 with one client, so to speak, a month.
Right. Yeah.
And reoccurring revenue, and that you will be able to provide services to that patient population on a monthly basis. Whether or not they use your service or not is up to them, but you reap the benefit of the reoccurring monthly revenue. So if you think
Okay.
about it, if you think about it like that, you don't really need too many of those kind of relationships to skyrocket your monthly revenue as a direct primary care practice.
Right. If you're
Right.
a solo, if you're a solopreneur operating on your own,
Yeah,
you can find 4 or 5 different businesses and be generating enough to maybe even hire an admin as well,
exactly.
potentially.
Now, to your point about like which ones have been struggling with it, so those are the ones that are successful, are the ones that are able to establish those relationships with employers and like have a direct
Just
contact.
before we go to struggling, what are some of those businesses that would work? The one that came to mind is like restaurants, and then
Yeah.
like coffee shops for me came to mind, right? Because you think about it, it's a small base operation. They're probably not providing health insurance, but like they could, they could. Ooh, that's my AirPods. Hopefully those still work.
Yeah, I mean, it just think of like a small business, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, one example was like a printing company, like a small printing company,
Oh, okay.
and like they had like 50 employees.
Right.
Another one was um, like a electrician shop, right?
Mhm.
They had a team of like 15 electricians. I mean, think of like the trades. Think of like the people that typically don't take care of themselves, right? For better or for worse. Think because maybe they can't afford insurance. They don't really go to the healthcare provider, and they don't have the option. But think of that owner of being interested in keeping their team healthy so they're not always calling in sick, right? Or they're not performing well on the job.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it doesn't take a lot. Like maybe put together a one-page flyer with the benefits to the employer for signing up and to the employee from like a cost perspective, but then also like the other benefits you get from like, lack of absenteeism, higher employee satisfaction, and things like that,
Right. Well, that's interesting. So then going then to struggling practices, what's happening at struggling practices that's different?
Well, so they're trying to build the practice one patient by one. You know what I mean? So they're basically signing up one member at a time, which works, but it takes a long time to do that. Or you have to invest in a lot of marketing, advertising dollars to, make that happen sooner than later.
Okay.
And so if you take that one by one approach, it takes longer to build up the monthly revenue that you really need to stay in business.
Yeah.
But if you go direct to employers, you can get there a little bit faster.
Right, because you're signing on 5, 10 at a time, 20 at a time.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah. Exactly. The ones that do it one by one, though, I mean, there was one I was talking with that was able to be successful that way. And the reason they were able to was because they basically encouraged their whole family to participate. So, like, a mom would show up, have her initial appointment, see the benefit in the subscription, sign up, and then the nurse practitioner would say, oh, by the way, do you have any kids? Are you married? Oh, yes. Have you considered it for your family? Oh, no. Well, why don't we get them signed up as well? So now instead of one, now you got 4, you got 5.
Right. So it could be signing up like one person, like, again, let's just say like $99 per month or something like that, or whatever, $199. Well, let's just use 100. That's just easy math. And then it could be very simple as, okay, but like, if it's a family up to 5 people, and it's just $250 flat, or something like that, or $300 or something. So
exactly.
Just getting you're just basically kind of building in the volume and knowing that you really need, if you want to build in a practice that's being able to bill out, say, I know generally a lot of practices target having a top line revenue around $250,000, just so after fees, after staff, they're able to walk away with generally about a 6-figure income at a minimum level. So that doesn't seem as ridiculous, right? Because that really translates to about $20,000 a month in revenue.
Yeah.
And if you sign on 10 families at say $300, you're
you're moving there faster. You're moving to that.
You're moving there faster, right?
To that goal faster. But the other thing that struggling ones do is they don't define the menu of services that their members get through the subscription, and they end up providing more expensive services that ultimately cost them more money, and then now having that patient isn't even profitable, right? So it's being super clear about what that subscription fee provides. Maybe it's a lab panel, maybe it's a physical, maybe it's you got a flu symptom or cold symptom you need someone to go talk to. Maybe it's urgent care type service, right? Or maybe it's not, and those types of things are extra fees. But
so what are then what's the marketing that goes into developing that subscription model? Like what do you see the best practices doing from marketing? Now I know they're acquiring clients and they're acquiring businesses, right? But like what are they doing online? What are they doing offline for marketing?
Well, so online, they typically will run like a Facebook ad for like a very low cost initial visit. Like if they've got COVID symptoms or they've got flu symptoms or whatever, they'll run an ad for like $29, visit with a healthcare provider, right? And so they'll come in, they'll get that problem taken care of, and they'll say, hey, by the way, do you have health insurance? And they may say yes or no, but regardless of the answer, you could say, look, are you getting all your needs met through your primary care provider that you have, or maybe you don't even have one? Or do you think that you could receive benefits from participating in a go-to primary care person that you can just call or text or email whenever, and they'll get back to you anytime, you know?
Got it. So it's sort of like that offer that brings them in the door.
Brings them in the door.
Okay.
And then in the copy or in the words that you would put in that advertisement, you could say, look, you could even call out, do you have health insurance? If you don't have health insurance, you know, this could be an option for you.
So, interesting. Are Facebook ads still useful for NPs that you're seeing? I know, like, you know, we've seen a lot of things now with the iOS change. I'm sure that people that have been following it, they might know what's going on, but people that sort of heard about it, heard about the war between Apple and Facebook Meta is going through the ringer in the media recently, they might say, like, the thought might be no one's on Facebook anymore. So, like, when you say Facebook ad, is it still effective with any practices you're seeing?
It depends. It's a mixed result. Depends on the market. For a lot of our clients, we have actually encouraged to go to Google Ads instead of Facebook.
Okay.
And the reason being is that people are more intentional when they're looking on Google, right? So they'll go and they'll need a primary care doc, or they need a urgent care visit, or they type in PCP near me or whatever. And if you're running Google Ads, you can have your website pop to the top of the list, which can drive traffic right to that website.
Okay, so you're seeing. So if you had a nurse practitioner with their, fresh practice, they just opened up, maybe they just got credentialed, and they are gearing up for they're gearing up for $1,000 marketing budget. What you would suggest Google Ads as the first thing to do? Like what's the order of operations?
Well, so you're brand new. Is that the scenario?
Yeah, the scenario is you're brand new. You have, let's say, you've opened up shop, primary care. Say you're in the suburb of Atlanta, suburb of somewhere in like Philly or something like that, and you got your insurances all squared away, and you're like, all right, how do I get patients?
Well, so there's a few things you got to do offline, and there's a few things you can do online.
All right.
Offline. Huh?
Let's hit it. What's offline?
Yeah. So offline, I mean, first of all, you got to define what's going to make you different in your practice. Like, are you going to have weekend hours? Are you going to have limited wait times? What benefit are you going to provide to that patient? Like, why should they come to you, right? And that's like your unique value proposition. So that's the first thing you got to do offline. And then the second thing you got to do is like have a basic website. Start thinking about, well, I guess that would be online, but offline, you want to make sure that that value proposition is in any material that you're passing out. So let's say that you just opened up, you know what your value proposition is. Now you would go to like a local chamber of commerce. So say you lived in a suburb of Atlanta. Every single town has a chamber of commerce. You go and you let them know, like, you're open for business. This is what you provide. And then you start networking with the businesses that are in that local chamber of commerce to let them know that this is what you offer and this is what you can offer their employees and all that kind of stuff. So now you're doing two things. You're building some offline awareness, but you're also starting to build those relationships with employers that may be interested in sending you their employees for healthcare, right? That would be really big. And then you could also start to think about what other kinds of strategic alliances would make sense for you and your specialty. So, for example, you probably see this all the time, but at community centers, at health clubs, Sometimes there's a provider out there like taking blood pressure, doing like skin cancer screenings, all kinds of different things. And that's a golden opportunity to start collecting some emails, start inviting them to schedule an appointment, and kind of grassroots growing your practice that way. It's like getting out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, right? You go kind of like providing, kind of it's in a way it's like a value add to that grassroots kind of handing out flyers model, right? For getting them in the door, handing out samples in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But the most important thing though is like you may not see this take effect right away, but don't give up. Right? Like you may need to go and do like 10 of these like pre-screenings to actually like determine if it's working. You can't just do it once and then say, oh, this doesn't work. It really takes a mindset to say, look, here is my plan, and I'm just going to execute on it until I see results. And if I don't see results by 60 days, I'm going to change my plan.
Now,
right?
but before we get into granular, you mentioned unique value proposition, right? Or unique selling proposition. What is that?
So that is, and every small business or every good business has this, either directly or indirectly. But it basically gives your patient, in this case, a reason to choose you versus choosing somebody else or not doing anything at all. Right? So, like for example, and this may not apply for a startup, but let's just say you've been in business for 10 years. You don't ever want to say we've been in business for 10 years. No one gives a crap. Nobody cares. But if you say, look, we've satisfied over 10,000, or we've successfully helped over 10,000 satisfied patients get better, that means something, because you're quantifying the number of patients and you're saying, look, all of these folks got better through working with us. Let you be next.
It's almost kind of like why would someone stop off at your clinic and not the one next door?
Yeah,
like, why
exactly.
you, right?
Why you?
Yeah, and it's not about like the fact that you're an NP or you went to a good school. Those things don't matter.
Well, and especially if you're an NP, like, no offense or anything, but the market is still, as everyone knows, like NPs are relatively new, and the market is still building trust with NPs.
Right, right. The concept of a doctor and a physician goes back like thousands of years.
Thousands of years, and
the concept of an NP goes back 80 or something like that.
So obviously there's a lot of value for NPs, but I would never position yourself as an NP. And that's a good point, Krish, because I've seen a lot of practices say like so-and-so NP or NP healthcare or something like that. No one cares about that. What they care about is spending more time with their provider, getting better, doing it for a lower cost, and having like a go-to person in their corner for their service, for their care. And NPs do all that stuff.
Yeah, right? So it's like they're going to spend time with you. It's going to be that person who holistically looks out for you. It's going to be the person that's not going to rush you out the door. You're not going to see them. You don't have to wait 2 months, hopefully, 2 months to get one appointment in, So that's the experience you want to highlight because that's the unique things about coming to an NP. Like saying that it's too young in the market, right? Like you wouldn't, and so like I think the way to position that like makes sense to me is, Airbnb 15 years ago didn't say, hey, go sleep at a random stranger's house.
Yeah.
Like that's not what they said, right?
Yeah,
what they said,
that just doesn't. Yep.
Right, that doesn't fly, and that sounds weird. But what they did do is you talked about the benefits of like, hey, having a personalized experience, having a home to be at, your home away from home, not being at like an impersonal hotel.
Yep.
like a having a larger tie to a community, a larger tie to something more authentic, that experience. So I'm with you there, and I think that's what an NP can do on the offline experience. Then moving online, I think super valuable to talk online that needs to come about.
So the thing about online is either you're going to spend time or money online, right?
Hold on, Namar.
And what I mean by
I think my volume went out for a sec. Can you run that by me one more time?
yeah, no problem. So when you're talking about online, you're either going to spend time or money, period.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is from a time perspective, you're either going to be posting on whatever social media channels you use. So if it's Facebook, if it's Twitter, if it's LinkedIn, whatever it is, but you're going to be doing that regularly and spending the time to post valuable content, tips for wellness, offers for scheduling a visit, all kinds of a mix of content that you're going to be putting out there. But that's going to take your time to do that, right? And if you don't have the time, then you have to find the money to go direct into paid search or paid advertising. And like we were talking about before, Facebook can work in certain situations, but in most situations, we'd recommend Google Ads because it leads to a direct phone call to your practice. Somebody goes searches on Google, they find your website, they see your phone number, they call your practice to learn more, to schedule an appointment. And that's a super effective way to get a real new patient on your calendar that's serious about coming to see you. Because the other downside of the online space with Facebook ads is you may get a bunch of leads, but they may have been scrolling at 3 in the morning, 5 in the morning, whatever, and they may not even remember what they were doing, right? And
For clarity, when you say Facebook ads, this also includes Instagram ads too, correct?
yeah,
All of
exactly.
Facebook's products, right? So, okay, got it.
Fair, good point. But yeah, Facebook or Instagram, basically like lead generation type ads, are just getting less traction than they once were maybe 3 years ago. For providers. But Google Ads are working really well.
Yeah.
But the challenge with Google Ads is you got to be ready to one, hire a good agency that knows what they're doing and can get you good results, and two, be willing to invest the advertising spend. And so you're really going to be looking at, maybe $2,000 a month for the marketing agency, and then maybe 750 to 1,000 for ad spend or more, depending on where you're located. So you're really looking at about a $3K a month advertising investment.
That's like the starting point. So if a provider's coming in, they're thinking, you know what, Namar, everything you're saying sounds good, but like I don't have the time to even think about this stuff. I want someone else to handle it for me. Agencies are charging $2,000 for a management fee to manage $1,000 ad spend.
Yep, to set everything up, to make sure it's working, and you want to give it about 90 days to really. I mean, it's designed to work immediately, but you may get calls that don't pertain to what you offer just because of the way Google is presenting their ads to the audience. And so there is a learning curve, and we definitely recommend if you want to use online advertising with Google Ads that you're spending, that 90-day time frame to really get some traction, right?
But you'll see results in 90 days.
Or yeah, I mean, you'll see results by about 30 to 45 days.
Okay.
But the full value of that investment, because it's not cheap, is going to, really come to life in that 60 and 90-day mark.
So is there anything else that needs to happen? Like you talked a little bit about the website side of it. What are the basics of a website that you feel like a practice needs to have versus the we just talk. I guess talk about what's needed in a very basic but effective website.
So here's a fun fact. I think it's 80 or 85% of the time a website visitor spends is on the landing page. So what I mean by that is if somebody lands on your website, 85% of the time they're only looking at what they see right there. They're not scrolling down, they're not clicking on your pages, they're not doing anything else. 85% is immediately what's visible to them, right? And so it's going to be super important that whatever they see when they land on your page is super valuable and nothing is wasted.
Okay.
And unfortunately, people love to put like really cool logos. No one cares about that. They love to put really nice stock images of a happy patient. Whatever. You know what I mean? They may even put the wrong phone number. I've seen the wrong phone number. Doesn't
Really?
even call practice. Doesn't even. It's a fax machine. It's the fax number or something. So whatever is on there needs to be like tested, right? And it should be what you need to have are basically like 5 things. Okay, you need to have your value proposition. So, what are you offering?
What makes you special, right?
What makes you special?
Yeah.
You need to have, if you can, um, uh, some of the problems that you solve. So, believe it or not, people don't even know what to use a primary care provider for. If this is what we're talking about here, they may not know what they can come to you for. So, how can they come to you if they don't know they can come to you for things that they're struggling with? So, list out like the most common things that you care for and treat. Do that, because anyone that lands on your site is going to be like, oh, I've got that, I should call you. So that's 2. The third thing is you want to have a very clear call to action on your website. So whether that's a phone number, if it's a book an appointment, if it's a enter your contact info, whatever your call to action, that should be your third thing. So you have your value proposition, you have your list of problems that you solve, and you have your call to action are absolutely critical. Everything else is basically fluff, right? You should have an attractive name, but don't spend too much time on that. You can have a logo, fine, but don't spend too much time on that. And then just continue to add information that you learn about from the patients that you're seeing, in terms of like, what are they struggling with? What are they looking for in a provider? If you hear that, look, they really enjoy coming to you because they feel like they get FaceTime, then you need to put that on your website.
Yeah, some sort of social proof, right? Like either reviews,
Testimonials.
testimonials.
Yeah.
Okay.
Testimonials. Yeah. I mean, basic testimonials, even a sentence. Doesn't even have to be a video. Doesn't have to be even their full name. They can have a initial, make it super easy. So, if a patient is enjoying their experience with you, ask them for a testimonial.
Got it. So that's so far 4 things, right? So the first thing being your USP, right? What it makes you unique. The second
Yep.
is the list of problems that you solve.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Third is a call to action, which is what they should do on the site. Either like, hey, for an appointment, call this number, text this phone number, fill out this form. Okay. And then the fourth thing is some sort of social proof. Okay.
Yep.
Fifth.
The fifth, you could have what they call like a lead magnet, if you want to get fancy. It's basically maybe like a 2-page PDF on the 5 myths of the common headache, or the 5 myths of sunblock, or whatever the thing is that you think would be interesting, but maybe the top 5 ways to lose weight without crazy diets or excessive exercise.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, maybe like the 5 common long post like long I don't even know what I'm saying, but basically after COVID, there's like the long tail symptoms some people have. Like, how do you know if you're suffering from that, right? And it's kind of like,
Exactly.
yeah. So it's like some sort of unique content that positions you as an expert, right? So,
Exactly.
you know,
Bingo.
you're an NP, you're an expert in your field. People know, like you have a graduate degree, whether or not you publish some sort of article, some sort of talk, some sort of just like talking to a mic, the same thing we're doing right now, and telling
Yeah,
whatever it is there, but something like that.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, those 5 things I think are going to set you apart and make you look really professional on your website. Um,
I think we could both agree that far too many, and I don't know why it's about private practices. I think it's, I actually have a theory on why this is happening, and I'll explain in a second. But I think far too many private practices spend way too much time on their name and on their logo. Like you're trying to get that to be perfect, and I think it's because like when you're spending all these years and all this money getting your degree and becoming a literally someone that's taking care of people, patients, your big thing I think is like you've attached so much of your identity into being this like professional, right? Like they're a NP first, a doctor first, a nurse first, sort of thing. I think that's why they spend so much time around like the name and the logo, when largely that's like really the thing you should do last, right?
Amen. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And it's like the return on your time for an awesome logo or an awesome name is so much less than the return on your time for actually just going out and starting to contact Chamber of Commerce, starting to offer free screenings, starting to do all these things that actually mattered. Because look, if if you're a very caring person and you got into this profession for the right reasons, people are going to like working with you most of the time.
Yeah.
And
The way you're gonna get your first patient is just because they're gonna like you as a provider.
they're going to like you, they're going to connect with you.
Yeah.
It's not going to be because your logo, it's not going to be because of the fancy name you got.
Yeah.
It's going to be because of how they feel when they interact with you.
Yeah.
And you just got to get out there and do it. Now, I know we're kind of running up on time, but I wanted to just include something really important here is that, look, it takes a lot to get a new patient in general,
Yeah.
but when you get that new patient, they can multiply. They can multiply by referrals, they can multiply by positive word of mouth, and they can multiply through reoccurring visits. One of the things I've seen is that new patients are only seen once and their problem isn't solved. And that's a disservice to the patient and to the practice because you're missing out on revenue and the patient isn't getting better. So a couple of things you got to definitely think about is scheduling the follow-up or putting a care plan in place for whatever issue that patient is dealing with to make sure they actually get better, not leaving it up to them to contact you again. Say, for example, they come in with high blood pressure, right? Okay, you put them on a care plan. Let's
Oh,
schedule
you're
let's
so
schedule
right. You're so right.
checkups,
Can I
right?
can I tell you what? First of all, like this is my primary care doctor. That's what he does, and it drives me up the freaking wall. Okay.
What does
Once
he
a
do?
year, I go in, I get a physical. He doesn't call me with the results. He doesn't tell me to come back in. He basically just like kind of sends me a note on their like internal system when it's like ready. And one of the things he wanted me to get on, he's like, "Hey, I want you to start like I forget, but it was something like maybe start taking more vitamin D, and then hey, we're gonna check this number or something like that in part of the physical." Never once followed up with me about it. But like he literally could have been like, "All right, Christian, like, hey, I want to see you back here in 3-4 months." All right, no one called, no one texted, nothing, none of that. Just
That's
get me
missed.
back in the door.
Yes, that's a missed opportunity.
He would have get me back in the door. I would have talked to him about it. It would have worked. High five, great. I'd have been happy that he helped me fix something. Or it didn't work, and then he would have told me to do something else. And I would have done it.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's a great example because there's no like feedback loop, right? It's
That's
like they
a
come in,
feedback loop. Yeah,
you get cared for, they leave, and the provider's trusting the patient does everything they said. but there's no accountability, and then you don't even know if they're getting better. And because they came to you, they are your patient, and it's your responsibility and just duty to make sure they get better, and putting them on a plan and scheduling them on the calendar and helping them get better, but at the same time helping increase your revenue so you can care for more patients.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
if you, you know,
I think you're right. I think it's that I don't even want to put it the idea of like, oh, it's like the provider responsibility to like make sure the patient does anything. I think a lot of providers would push back on that one, just in my experience of a kind
well,
of
you can't control their behavior. You
right.
can't. But I'm saying what I'm talking about the responsibility. I just want to be super clear. It's the responsibility to like put them on the calendar to check on them. It's not necessarily what they do outside your office. Like that doesn't. There's no
And
control
that's how
there.
you build relationships, right? In 2022, like, look, moving forward, the only reason, like, everything these days is being eaten up by either technology and being commoditized, right? People
Exactly.
can find 50 different practices. They can go online and do telehealth. They can just go to you directly. There's so many options that the only reason people are going to work with you is for that relationship, right?
Exactly.
If
That's your biggest differentiator.
and I
It's
would argue it's not just a relationship with you, it's the experience, it's the entire experience. This is something that like um I'm pretty sure, yeah, I think we talked about it in the book, actually.
well,
Yeah,
we
I remember
talked
this.
about the patient relationship and like mastering communication. Like to your point, how many times have you experienced the provider calling you after your treatment and saying, "How you feeling?"
A provider calling me.
Ever.
Once. One. No, you're right.
Maybe never, maybe once. But here's the thing. Any new patient you get, their very first visit, you call them at the end of the day. You list out all the new patients you saw. That's a very good tactical thing that everyone can do. You list out all the patients that you saw, you pick up the phone, you call them, you check on them, tell them it was great to see you. How's whatever issue they're facing, you feeling okay? That is going to blow them away. Nobody does that. Nobody. It's a different level of care, and they're going to be like, wow, this NP cares more about me than anyone I've ever seen. And they're my person. They are my provider.
Yeah.
I'm just like, as a quick example, my mom's been with an NP for about 20 years now for that very reason. They text, she calls her after, how you feeling? Did that medication work? It's an incredible relationship. And I think everyone should have something like that, you know?
I mean, it's almost kind of like this gold, like it's almost kind of like oh, there's a saying, but like I forget, but those don't exist. It exists so infrequently. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
differentiate yourself if you did just that. Um, so I think like going back a couple minutes back to that landing page, right? I just wanted to really make sure that like the home page of someone's website is as clear as humanly possible.
Yep.
Example of like a decent USP, right? Is like, are you frustrated being rushed out the door by your primary care provider? Guaranteed 30-minute visits per visit, even for new patients. You know, um,
Yeah.
you know.
Guaranteed. Yeah, exactly. Like if you have the time, like if you're new and you're trying to build patience, guaranteed 30 minutes
Oh man, dude,
appointment.
there's an NP, and their names escape me right now. I think they were on the podcast just recently. Yes, no, I remember. Oh man, she has an incredible practice. Okay, so I'm gonna shout out my girl Lutricia. Okay, out of Houston, she's on the podcast. Absolutely love her. Get this, she had a successful practice. Didn't even have a website for years,
Oh, wow.
and the reason is
Completely offline. Completely offline.
completely offline. And guess what? In person or intakes, something like that, like new patients, she could be with them for like up to an hour or something like that. It was
Oh,
something
wow.
absurd, but it was like it makes sense. No wonder. Like, no wonder you have patience. No wonder you didn't need a website. I was like, how?
Well,
I was like, girl, how'd you
that's
survive? How'd you survive
that,
without a website? And it's just like, they needed it. And it's obvious because it was like that client experience was so good that, you got,
She went and told her friends. She went and told her friends, guess what? I saw Latricia.
and
That's
that
how you
mattered
say
a
her
hell of a
name.
lot more, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
She was incredible. And then they call, and then it just,
Boom.
it's boom. You don't need a lot of new patients. You need some to start. But
Yep.
if you nail that patient experience, it's going to multiply and you're going to be very successful.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. So Namar, look, we are coming up on time, but I want you to, if you can do two things for me. One, share the lowest hanging fruit that would apply to maybe 80% of NPs in practice right now. Prior practice, non-prior practice. Lowest hanging fruit they could do in something maybe like 20 or 30 minutes if you could think of something. And then
Yep.
let's do that. That's my last thing for you.
Okay, so here's the lowest hanging fruit. Let's assume that you're kind of you open your practice and COVID's been tough, but you've seen some patients, but now things are kind of at a slow start and you don't know what to do. All right, here's what you can do. You can contact your past patients. It's called reactivation, so to speak. But you email them and you invite them for basically like a wellness visit, a checkup, whatever it is you want to offer. And that should provide about 5 to 10% new appointments based on whatever number you sent. So if you have 100 emails and you send that reactivation, you should get about 5 to 10 appointments from that strategy.
Smart. Reactivation owed clients also because it's the start of the year. It's still only February 18th at date of recording of this podcast. So by the time it goes live, this podcast, it might be first, second week of March. People's insurance have renewed, but they haven't gotten their new physical. Smart.
Yes.
Okay, boom. Get some patients in, get their physical done, get them on a treatment plan for 2022 so people take their healthcare more seriously this year.
Exactly. And you can still, to your point, leverage the new year, new you type language or, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, just like, hey, insurance renewed. You schedule your annual.
Yeah, take advantage of your benefits. If you accept insurance, take advantage of your benefits is what you should be doing.
That's so smart. Okay. Wow, that was awesome. That's really smart. How can people find more about you, man? Where can they find you online, website, whatever you want to share?
Yeah, so npjumpstart.com is the website that you and I have. Your picture's still up, but I'm going to change that. Or you can send me an email at
I am, just so everybody knows, I'm not active in the NP Jumpstart client stuff. Just in the.
He is not. That is correct. And that happened probably about 8 months ago now. But anyway, your picture is nice, so I keep it up there, but I'm going to take it down.
That hurts, but I can't believe you're telling me that just in front of like thousands of people, but I'm okay with it. I'll live.
And then if you want to email me, just email Namar at npjumpstart.com.
All right. That's NP Jumpstart. Nancy Paul Jumpstart. Well, everyone listening knows NP. They're not going to think of it as MP. But anyway, Namar, having you on was awesome, dude. It's always a blast to catch up, man.
Good to see you, pal. Thanks for inviting me, and always happy to chat.
Yeah, dude. We'll catch up soon, all right?